Anger is a curious kind of isolation, much like suffering. It cuts us off from everyone around us, at least in that heated moment. Sometimes it feels like pure desperation flaring up. We get angry when we're disappointed, jealous, or hurt. We lash out violently or defend ourselves with all sorts of excuses. We blame others, and that blame is really just another way to protect our own self-image. If we looked at anger without trying to prove we're right or wrong, what would happen? Usually we justify our anger and keep the flame alive. Or we decide someone else should pay for how we feel. Maybe they owe us happiness, status, or affection. When they fail to deliver, we get frustrated, bitter, or resentful. Underneath it all, you often find the notion, I'm special, I should be treated as such. There's the sort of anger that flares up because of something physical. Maybe we're in pain or our body chemistry is out of balance. That's easier to spot and treat. But then there's the psychological anger, a deeper, more elusive creature. We can get upset at the drop of a hat, and yet we're quick to say, well, of course I'm angry. He did this or she said that. We feel totally justified, right? It's rare that we simply say, wow, I'm angry, and let it be without spinning a story around it. Instead, we dive into all the reasons, excuses, and history behind the anger. Sometimes jealousy or pain is hiding just below the surface, but we don't like to admit it, so we focus on how wrong the other person is. All those mental gymnastics keep the anger alive and distract us from seeing ourselves clearly. If I place all my happiness and self-worth in you, if I depend on you for my sense of wholeness, then you become crucial to my life. I cling to you, possess you, because you make me feel complete. But the instant you fail to fill that role, maybe you turn away or move on, I'm tossed back into my own emptiness. That triggers fear, which can spark anger in many forms, disappointment, bitterness, or jealousy. When anger is pushed down and festers as resentment, we start talking about forgiveness as if it's some magic cure. But what if that stored up anger never took root in the first place? Then forgiveness wouldn't even be necessary. Trying to forcibly get rid of anger, using willpower or denial, doesn't help, because willpower itself can be a kind of aggression. It's driven by desire or ambition, which always contains the seed of domination. If you try to squash your anger through sheer force, you just end up shifting that anger into another form. So instead of fighting anger with more aggression, it might be wiser to understand the deeper desire that fuels it. Think about those moments when you're not just mildly annoyed, but truly furious. Usually it's because something or someone has wounded your sense of self. Perhaps someone said something hurtful, but if they'd praised you instead, you'd feel gratified, right? It's the blow to our self-importance that stings. We tend to carry around certain images and ideals of who we are. When these images are challenged, anger erupts. But if we truly saw ourselves as we are, without pretending to be something we're not, nobody could really hurt us. If I know I'm dishonest at times and someone points it out, well, that's just true. But if I'm trying to maintain the illusion that I'm always honest, I'll get angry when called out. Our minds are often lost in a dream of who we should be rather than who we actually are. To see life clearly, we have to drop our judgments, fears, and fantasies and face the real situation. The more you fight something, the more you become it. If I'm in a rage and you come at me with equal fury, we'll only escalate. You'll become just as angry as I am. If I'm cruel and you try to conquer me through cruelty of your own, you've fallen into the same trap, even if you feel your cause is noble. To break this cycle, we have to meet anger with something different, some sense of kindness, intelligence, or awareness. When anger meets anger, it just multiplies. Understanding, on the other hand, can untie the knots that keep anger in place. Humanity has a long history of hatred and violence. It's been passed down through generations. Our parents, our grandparents, and so on, all contributing to this destructive legacy. We don't suddenly become angry out of nowhere. We inherit it, and we continue to perpetuate it, often because we feel it's just the way life is. The world out there is really an amplified reflection of what's going on inside each of us. If you truly want to end hatred, then you must stop fueling it in yourself. If you remain entangled in resentment or violence, you're feeding the very thing you say you want to stop. Yes, the world feels enormous, full of structures, institutions, and belief systems, but they're all maintained by people. If enough individuals shift from ignorance and anger to clarity and understanding, it changes the flavor of the whole. The real revolution begins in the mind, and from that understanding comes a sense of wholeness that affects everything. Have you ever wondered why there's so much brutality in the world? Or do you simply accept it as part of life? All of us carry a seed of violence within. It shows up when we're irritated, when we feel disrespected or cornered. We might cling to our national identity or religious beliefs with an almost aggressive passion, shutting out anyone who thinks differently. This violence isn't new. Humanity's been at war with itself for ages. It's worth asking, why does this keep happening? Even if we find reasons or justifications, that doesn't necessarily free us from violence, does it? But still, exploring the roots might help us understand how to step beyond it. One root is plainly physical, something we inherit from our long history as animals. You've seen animals fighting over territory or a mate. Well, humans have evolved from animals, and we carry that same aggressive streak, that territorial instinct. Another factor is the environment we've built, our culture, social systems, and educational framework. Society often pushes us to compete and fight for our place, constantly telling us we must succeed, be the best, or climb the ladder. So we become hostile, driven by the desire to stand out, even if that means trampling others. This environment doesn't just appear out of thin air. We humans create it. When each of us is out for ourselves, it's no wonder there's violence. But perhaps the biggest reason for violence is our deep craving for psychological security. We want certainty in our inner world, which leads us to seek control and guarantees in our outer relationships. We want marriage contracts that ensure our partner won't abandon us. We want property rights to make sure nobody invades our space, yet there's no such thing as total, unchanging security in relationships. Anything can shift. Your partner might leave, your wealth might vanish. When these threats appear, fear triggers aggression as we scramble to protect our illusion of safety. Yes, we need a certain level of order in society, shared language, basic agreements, ways to live together. But that outer order won't solve the inner chaos unless we really look at ourselves. Can you acknowledge the violence or anger within you without denying it, blaming someone else, or glossing it over? Can you just see it, plain as day? In a world that worships ambition and competition, is it any wonder some teenagers lash out or break the rules? They want attention in a society that prizes winning and profit above all else. But if we only lock them up or ship them off to the military, we're missing the bigger picture. The real issue lies in a social structure that exalts success and personal gain. It's a mindset that starts in our own hearts, then becomes the foundation of our collective world. Look at how we celebrate certain heroes, even those who achieve their status through violence or conquest. We get caught up in us versus them, stoking conflict between beliefs and nations. And then we wonder why young people act out or commit crimes. If we only try to treat the symptoms, by more discipline, punishment, or therapy, we'll never uproot the source. We're afraid to question the very foundation. Is our entire social setup, with its emphasis on power and division, creating this chaos? When we finally see the whole structure clearly, we might be able to let go of the illusions that fuel anger, fear, and conflict. And in that space, something genuinely new, real peace, can begin to grow.